It's Tommy on tap, baby!
I'm a man! I'm 40!
Bite a kneecap off.
On the last play of the game!
It's Tommy on tap.
Welcome back to Tommy on Tap. I'm Bob. I'm with my brother Kevin and our dad Tom. Tommy, what do you have on tap for us today?
We got to talk NFL football and college football. Another exciting week, but in a different way, I think, than what was in the past. You know, you had the Packers, Bucks, and the Broncos, 49ers, and you thought, well, maybe there'll be some offensive fireworks, some explosiveness, and you end up with, what was it, a 14-16 game or a 14-12 game, an 11-10 game. So the NFL never ceases to amaze you. We got to spend a little time talking about, a couple things. One, our Spartans just, boy, I don't know, they got to find their way pretty quick. And then, for 58 minutes, I don't think I've been more proud as a Lions fan than to watch the way they played, how they played, and then just the last 2 minutes we got to discuss, because I guess it just baffled me and came away feeling pretty sad. So a lot of stuff to talk about, good football and more coming up this week.
All right, well, where should we start it? Should we talk a little bit about last week first? Any games, pro or college, that stuck out to anybody that they'd like to discuss?
Well, I think that Packers-Bucks game was just, really interesting. You get the two. I did think it goes to show you, even though you can have the two, arguably right now, I don't know, best quarterbacks. Obviously, Tom Brady is the GOAT. He's up there a little bit. Aaron Rodgers is there. But to have them in situations where they're missing some things, where the offensive line isn't just clicking in Tampa Bay and where the receivers aren't clicking in Green Bay, and both teams that they played against have pretty good defenses, goes back to show you that there's more to winning football games in the NFL than just having that one great star. It truly is a team game, and if everything's not there, it makes it difficult to move the ball.
Yeah, so you are the expert historian here on football. So can you remember a time where you had someone that was Tom Brady's level that ran it back for one last year and had kind of some of the same struggles that you're seeing here with Brady?
Well, I mean, Tom's last ride here is still pretty good. I saw the days when Joe Namath tried to stick around, with the Rams, which was just like very, very sad day to watch that stuff going on. Joe Montana went over to the Kansas City Chiefs and led them to the playoffs, even I think to the AFC Championship game, but it just wasn't the same. It just wasn't there, and I think that's unfortunately kind of where Tom's at. Roger Staubach never played another down for anybody other than the Cowboys. Terry Bradshaw never played a down for anyone but the Steelers. Bart Starr for anyone but the Packers. I think that was just kind of the norm. You knew when it was time and you moved off, but there's never been anybody like Tom. But unfortunately, I think this could be one of those years where he regrets maybe not staying on the couch next to Giselle.
Right, because that's what I was going to ask next. Like you said, it's not like it's the most disappointing year ever, but what makes it a successful year for Tom Brady? I mean, when you've got the Super Bowl percentage that he has, is it Super Bowl or bust for him?
I think he'll say, and people will say that, no, that's not what it is. But what's the point in coming back if you're not going to try to win the whole damn thing? I mean, that has to have been why he came back. He didn't come back to win 10 games. So,
yeah. I think he even said that. He said he had unfinished business. When you say you have unfinished business, it doesn't mean coming back and throwing for 65% and leading your team to 10-7 and going to the playoffs. It's going to the Super Bowl and winning it. And that may still happen. But, boy, it sure didn't look like it. The 3 weeks I've watched them, they're good, but they don't look like a Super Bowl team to me.
Right, and who does look like a Super Bowl team? A couple of teams from both conferences that nobody would have guessed would be looking that way, which is the Eagles and the Dolphins jump out to me as the only two undefeateds left. And, I mean, the Dolphins took it to the Bills this week. The Eagles have been taking care of business up and down the field. So it's interesting when you're Brady and you come back and in your head you've got the Packers and the Rams to compete with, but there's some other teams this year that are looking real good and just kind of a different landscape in the NFL this year than what you might have expected.
The Eagles, the first week, they beat the Lions and offensively they were kind of all over. Now the last 2 weeks, I think offensively they've been good, but again they've been in that low 20s and their defense has really carried the day. So that will be interesting how that continues to play out, with their offense, because it's like they have these big starts and then they tend to really slow down. So as long as their defense keeps doing the job, because the Lions exposed their defense a little bit, with some of the things that they did. And then of course the Dolphins, that really shocked me. Other than the fact it was down in Miami, when it was so doggone hot, that it's just tough to play down there and win.
So how about on the college side of the ball? Anything this week that you guys want to touch on? It was kind of a weak slate of games. We watched Kansas State, Oklahoma. Tom, you and I watched that game together. Pretty surprising there. We caught Arkansas and Texas A&M. That was kind of a heartbreaker for the Arkansas team there and their kicker. But
well, Kevin, you got to talk to us about Michigan State. What are you thinking?
I was camping this Saturday. I did not catch the Michigan State game.
Oh, you did not?
No, I pulled it up on my phone periodically. We left to go camping at 3:30, which was kickoff. I was ecstatic. I will talk about the game I did watch, the Kansas game.
That's right.
Last week we talked Kansas a little bit, but we had to cut it from the video that we posted because of some administrative issues with our commentary there. But I wish that we were able to capture it, because I think we would have called out what a lot of people kind of realized over the weekend. They're looking good. I watched it. That quarterback he has a very, very quick release, very accurate with the ball. He was threading it in. Now, they were playing Duke, but he was throwing the ball really, really well. He was exciting to watch. I think we mentioned last week that if they beat Duke, they've got, I think, Iowa State and then TCU before they get to Oklahoma. Watching them play Duke, I think they have a chance of winning those two games and being undefeated when they roll into to play Oklahoma, and probably being ranked. I think a lot of people were shocked that they didn't break into the top 25 after being 4-0. They beat West Virginia. They've already got a Big 12 win. They beat Houston, who will be in the Big 12 next year, right? They beat Duke and then some other team that you would expect them to beat, except maybe you wouldn't expect Kansas to beat them.
Right.
Historically,
Matt Hatter couldn't beat them.
Yeah, they're playing really, really well, and I was excited to watch that game and kind of see, okay, this might be the real deal. They might be able to knock off, a good 7 wins this season.
Yeah,
well,
this week will be a good test for them.
You look at two teams that, when you talk about hiring, like you've got Nebraska out there looking for a coach, and everybody's throwing all the big names out there, but you look at Kansas State, and Kansas. Kansas State went and they got Chris Kleiman, I believe, who had won 4 or 5 national championships at North Dakota State. Kansas went after, trying to get a couple of big names, went and got Lance Leopold from Buffalo, who made his bones at Wisconsin Whitewater, I think, or some place like that, Platteville, they're one of those schools. Whitewater. And you just look at what they're building, it's just nice to see. I mean, those guys just have solid programs. And, Kansas State, Bobby and I watched that one. And actually, Bobby conked out on me before the very end of that one. We watched the end of the Arkansas game. And then Martinez, who's been around for 60 years, for Nebraska, and then goes there. He took criticism the week before because he didn't step up and make plays in a loss to Tulane. But, man, was he good against Oklahoma. Holy cow, he was a one-man show. Oklahoma couldn't stop him, and Kansas State won the game.
Yep, he was the offensive player of the week or whatever, I think, in the NCAA, whatever awards they give out. I mean, quarterback of the week, whatever. He
looked phenomenal.
Yep, absolutely did. Killing people with his legs, and he made throws when he had to. I mean, competent, good completions that just whittled away at that Venables defense, and they couldn't overcome it. So that was a good game. I think that, like I said, it was kind of a weaker slate this week with games. Texas A&M and Arkansas was probably the one that jumped out as being the on paper going into the week, the game that you'd be looking for, and that was the one I was looking forward to. And I like Sam Pittman in Arkansas a lot, but Jimbo got the win back for Texas A&M, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Texas A&M, because part of me wanted them to be undefeated going into Alabama so that Nick Saban could beat him 49-0 and make it hurt a little bit more. But I don't know. Interesting program over there. They signed another 5-star today, so they're still buying up the victories for 2027.
I saw Michigan State signed a 4-star over the past couple or at least got a commit from him or whatever. So,
And the most important thing is that it's a 4-star defensive back.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that he's probably sitting there like, well, I'm going to play. Okay.
There. Yeah. Well, the crazy thing about that Arkansas game was, you talk about, again, a play turning a game, 14-7, you're going into score. KJ Jefferson, who's a great, player for them, tries to jump to get the ball over the end line or the goal line. As he jumps, he probably jumped a little early. The ball gets knocked out, scooped up as the players running for Arkansas. You guys probably all know this. He hands it off to another player, and they run for a touchdown. It's like a 13-point swing because they missed the extra point. And then that damn field goal at the end, man, it's
bizarre.
at the top of the upright. You just felt horrible for that kid and for Arkansas because like I said, Pittman, again, same kind of thing. Arkansas tried the big splash with Bielema. Didn't go so well. They've also had didn't they have the guy that was at Louisville down there for a while too?
They had the guy who was at Clemson for a while, Chad Morris.
Chad Morris, that's right. Okay. And so they tried that big hire, and then they hire an offensive line coach, and he from Georgia, I think, right? Wasn't he the O-line coach at Georgia?
I don't remember specifically.
I think so. I think he was Kirby's O-line coach. So it's just kind of fun to see those guys succeed. But boy, that was a tough loss.
Interesting. I'm looking at Sam Pittman here, and wow, does he have a long list of different schools that he's coached for. But the one that jumps out to me is that in 1999, he was the assistant head coach at Western Michigan.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Following, he went from being the offensive line coach at Oklahoma to being the assistant head coach at Western Michigan.
I wonder if 99 was about the time that, boy, who was there? Can you check Western? Who was Western's head coach in 99?
Talk about something and I'll look that up.
Yeah, because it might be Gary Darnell, maybe. That would be a connection that I would think possibly could be there, but I don't know. But, hey, some other good, solid college football games as well. Baylor, continues to look pretty darn good, just the way they play, Dave Aranda's defense. They just do a good job. I mean, he's solidified again, another guy that, paid his dues and became a head coach, and, he's doing a great job there.
Well, that's what I think is interesting when we talked about, who Nebraska needs to hire. And I think they're still trying to make a big splash. You'd think after the Scott Frost disaster, they'd realize, well, why don't we just go hire a good coach and not someone who once was a quarterback for our school?
Right.
Well, he's a Nebraska man, damn it. But they let people like some of the names I've heard floated are like Dave Aranda and Lance Leipold. Like those people are going to leave where they're at to go to Nebraska. Give me a break.
Yeah,
it needs to be a significant jump for whoever's taking it, or it needs to be someone who's been out of coaching for a few years, like Urban.
Where Lance Leipold's got Kansas at. Why would I can't go to Nebraska and recruit any better there than I can in Kansas? Like, why would?
Well, I can tell you one thing though: the money at Nebraska to bring that coach in will be much greater than the money in Lawrence, Kansas. So that's what Lawrence. They've got to do what Michigan State did with Mel Tucker. They've got to get off the pot and get some money so the guy will stay there because you don't coach for money, but it's life-changing money for you, your family, and your children, and it just makes that difference when those millions of dollars get offered to you. That you're in a career and trying to improve your life, but they got to get some money. That's just the facts. You got to pay them.
I'll take this lull to say yes, it was Gary Darnell.
Okay, that makes sense because Gary Darnell had a lot of connections with Florida, down in the Southeastern Conference. I think he was a D coordinator down there. Might have been even around the time when Urban Meyer was there. Could be wrong there. Or Steve Spurrier. He was a big connection with the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, Meyer wasn't at Florida in '99.
Wasn't he? Okay, yeah. I just know that's Gary Darnell was the DC down there. I know, and
Tim Lester was the QB that year too, I think.
Okay. Western went out on the West Coast and had a kind of a flop. Tough to travel, but I thought they were better than that. And San Jose State's it's not like going out there and playing Fresno State, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I was surprised they didn't do a little better.
Speaking of the West Coast, Washington State was looking like they were going to beat Oregon there for a while, and then I didn't see the end of the game. It was about the time we packed up and went camping, but something happened. And
yeah, that Washington State better than we thought, and then Oregon. That's now it goes back to just how good is Georgia? Because Georgia just spanked them in the opener, and now they're playing some pretty darn good football.
Yep.
Hey, and while we're on college, before we go on to the pro stuff, but just looking at some games that are coming up, you talk about a big game. I think UCLA plays a big game against
Washington.
Washington.
Both 4-0. Yeah.
Yeah, both 4-0. That to me, I thought that was a big game in UCLA. With Chip Kelly there, they just kind of fly under the radar a little bit, and they're sitting there at 4-0, and this could be a big game for the Pac-12.
Let's use this as an opportunity to make some predictions. I know Bobby brought up some 4 games he wanted us to look at, and then he gave us each a wild card. We'll go through the 4 games, but Dad, are you going to use UCLA Washington as your wild card pick'em game?
I am going to use that. That's what I was going to talk about. I couldn't forget. I remember it seems like I was thinking they were Oregon, but that'll be a good one to talk about.
All right, well, let's go ahead and go through it. Bobby, what games you want us to look at?
Yeah, so I think it'd be fun for us just to do a kind of a pick'em thing and keep track for the season. So I highlighted a couple of the big games this week that might be kind of a coin toss that maybe shakes up the top 25. So we'll start with the first game being number 7 Kentucky versus number 14 Ole Miss. Who you guys got there?
I think it's an interesting one. Ole Miss, their defense looks good, but they haven't played anybody. Kentucky has actually played some teams, notably Florida. I think Kentucky's going to end up winning that one.
Is that in the Grove or is it?
It's in Ole Miss.
It's in the Grove.
Okay, I because it's there, I go with Ole Miss.
Yeah, I would really like to see Kentucky win because I like Kentucky being in the top 10. I like the whole thing they've got going this year with Stoops, and I would like them to win, but I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say that Lane Kiffin's gonna get a win here.
On a side note, we got to go to a game in the Grove someday.
Yes. Very least tailgate at the Grove.
Yep.
Watch the game on TV.
Yep.
All right, game number 2, Bama, Arkansas.
Yeah, Bama, Arkansas.
Bama.
I mean, obviously, Bama's going to win the game. I hope that Sam Pittman and Arkansas can give them a run for their money. I think that they will, truthfully. I don't think Bama... So, Bama's obviously Bama, but I haven't seen them be, 49-0 Bama over some of the teams that have kind of given them a run for their money, and I think that Arkansas is going to do it. I think that it'll be a closer game than people might imagine, but, maybe 31-21 Bama.
What do you think, Kev?
I've got Bama.
Well, I never vote against Nick Saban. I never vote against Nick Saban, but I think this is going to be the stinker. I think Arkansas pulls this one off. I think one thing that Alabama has not done is, like you said, they haven't beat a good team yet. And look good. I think Arkansas is going to surprise them down there. That's my upset special of these picks you have, Bobby. I go Arkansas.
All right. Well, I hope to see it because not because I don't like Nick Saban, but just because I really do like Arkansas. I like that. I like Sam Pittman. I like his whole demeanor in his program. So I wouldn't be upset if Saban drops it to him.
They're primed for an upset.
All right, next game we're gonna go a little Carolina action. Number 10 NC State at number 5 Clemson. Kevin, we all know who you have, but why don't you enlighten us on why?
I have NC State.
Ooh, upset alert over there, huh?
No, I just think NC State's playing better ball.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Kevin's thought on that. I think the quarterback for Clemson finally had a good game, but he still is too up and down. And the only reason, Kevin, I agree it's going to be a good game, but you know where they're playing. They're going to run down and rub Howard's rock. I'm going to go Clemson, but I do have your sentiment there. But I just think at home Clemson finds a way.
Yeah. Right. So I saw the number today, and I'm going to be off by 1 or 2, but I think it's either 37, 38, or 39 games in a row that Clemson has won at home, and I don't see that streak breaking. I think it'll be a good game. NC State's a good program, and it's good to see ACC schools up there in the top 10 having a top 10 matchup, but Dabo and Clemson will pull it out there.
All right, last one. Good one in the Big 12. Oklahoma State, Baylor.
I'll go first. I think that Oklahoma State is going to blow them out. I think Dave Aranda's great. Baylor, great. I think that they're overrated, though. I think that Gundy. Think it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be 40 to something in the teens game with Oklahoma State.
I'll let Kevin go last on this because I know he feels, but I like Oklahoma State, but I don't like them in this game. I think Baylor. I think they are better than advertised, and I think Aranda's got them going. I'm at home. I'm going Baylor over Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I'm going with Baylor as well. I don't think Oklahoma State hasn't played. I think their best competition that they've played was Central, and whereas Baylor, their best competition was BYU. They lost, but it was a close one. I think Baylor's gonna pull it out. Defense is gonna hold Oklahoma State to some lower numbers than they're accustomed to, and they're gonna end up winning the game.
Yeah, and I watched Central just kind of come back on them and run the ball and pass the ball, and I don't know how good. I thought the defense was going to be better, but they lost their DC to Ohio State, which is benefiting Ohio State. But yeah, I think Baylor wins this one.
All right, and then so have we kind of targeted a pick'em game? Tom, you already mentioned yours. You want to go first there on your wild card?
Yeah, I thought the Washington UCLA game. It's in the Rose Bowl. I've always been a fan of UCLA. From back when I was a kid. I like UCLA. I like Chip Kelly. I hope they win. I think it's going to be a good game, but I'm going UCLA in a tight one there. That guy Chip Kelly, it seems to always be a tight one with him. So I'm going UCLA and a big win for them.
All right, Kevin, who do you got?
I'm going with the Kansas game at Iowa State. I think it'll be a good matchup against two teams that historically haven't been great in the Big 12. Iowa State maybe isn't having the greatest year that they've had in the past 4, but they're still playing good ball. I think Kansas is going to win.
For mine, I've got the eye patches and the cannonballs flying. I got unranked Mississippi State knocking off Texas A&M after they've pulled out these last couple wins against ranked teams. It's at Mississippi State. They've put up great numbers. In 3 of their 4 games, they've put up 49, 39, and 45. And Texas A&M has not put up those numbers to kind of match that offense. I see them having a little bit of a lull now. They're going to feel all great over their Miami and Arkansas wins, and I see Mike Leach saying that, Jimbo, sit down.
Nice.
Yeah. I'll throw one more out there. I think Michigan's going to win, but we're going to learn a lot about their offense because Iowa's defense is good.
Yep.
I think over
Iowa
4
State,
games,
right?
I believe so. Yep.
Yeah.
In over 4 games, I think they've given up like 23 total points. Now, they're not to the greatest teams, but they're to some better competition than Michigan has played so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kirk Ferentz knows the way to get it done.
Now, I know that this wasn't on the agenda, but Maryland, Michigan State in Maryland.
I have tickets if I can find a damn babysitter. I thought my wife and I were going to go, but then her sister's coming to town and they're going hiking. So I've got to find a babysitter. I have tickets. Good tickets. So
big game for Michigan State, man. Gosh darn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be, it's in Maryland, but it doesn't matter where it is. That's a game that $90 million Mel Tucker needs to win.
Yep.
So, all right, we will revisit that in the rest of college football next week. In the meantime, Tom, you in the opener you kind of touched on the Lions a little bit. What do you think? Do you have anything that you want to talk about further? You want to talk about the upcoming week? What do you got?
Yeah, I just need to address it. I think I've never seen when Dan Campbell's press conference. I mean, that dude. The only person that might have felt as bad as him was me. Because I really thought we looked as good as we've looked. And that may sound, we were tough. We owned the game. You have a chance to just get a first down. We've gone on fourth down 5 times. We've gotten 4 of them. You're up by only 6. So
not even. We were up 3.
Up 3. I'm sorry. So even if we kick the field goal, they can come down and still beat you with a touchdown. I just don't know why in God's name we didn't go for it on fourth down, and live with that because it just that was the right thing to do. And I know he knows it now. But man, it still bothers me. I couldn't listen to talk radio the next morning. I didn't want to hear him talk about it. I was just sick to my stomach. We should have been 2-1. That's one we let get away on the road. Just a heartbreaker.
And it's a conference game. Or a divisional game, too. We really should have won that.
God, we were better than them.
I was real excited just telling my wife, I don't think in my entire life I've seen the Lions play football this well.
Yes.
It was fantastic until the very end.
They were amazing except for one play. I don't even, and the rest of it, honestly, the bad coverage, and you can go back to that. Hey, he went for the field goal, the defense flopped. But I'm going to tell you what, I think the air came completely out of the Lions when they did what they did. Even if he'd have made that field goal, we're going to lose that game by 1 point. That's just a fact. So I was really disappointed. But now we're moving on. Seattle at home, 2-2. Just got to make it happen. Now we're back, just like the week before, we said the Commanders game was a make or break game. Now the Seattle game, to me, becomes a make or break game for us.
Is it home or away?
It's home.
Yep. Have to win that game. I mean,
have to win that game at home.
Have to win that game if you're where you're at. However, the people that I saw missing practice today was quite alarming. I know that we're not going to have Swift, St. Brown, or Josh Reynolds this week, so they're not playing. So the offense is absolutely hamstrung. You're going to have a big game from Jamal Williams, who has proven that he can run. I mean, Swift gets his yards, but when he hands the ball off to Williams, he's getting 6-8 yards on some of these carries. We're going to need DJ Shark, former All-Pro wide receiver. It's going to have to be an All-Pro wide receiver. I would imagine that guys like Tom Kennedy, that if you watched Hard Knocks and you watched the preseason, that he played great. I would have to imagine he's pulled up off the practice squad this week with the injuries that we have.
TJ Hawkinson's got to come through too.
Yeah.
No, we need him to be big. And then the defense needs to get some turnovers. That's one thing we're not doing yet. We're not creating, we need the defense to come up big for us if we're missing those guys.
I want to point one thing out, though, about the Lions when you're talking defense is Jeff Okudah. Last week, he covered Justin Jefferson, gave up 2 receptions for 9 yards. And when he covered Devontae Smith in week 1, he gave up 0 receptions for 0 yards on 6 targets. Jeff Okudah has come back from this Achilles injury and looked exactly the way that you would want him to look to be a number 3 overall pick. And it's amazing that he's done that. And it's regardless, because we still are in a rebuilding year that got a little bit expedited by some of the things that we saw with Hard Knocks and some of the things that we saw in the early games. Realistically, we're still happy at 7-10 probably. But seeing things like Jeff Okudah playing like that is great.
But all those injuries you talk about, I'll just say one, and I'll let Kevin finish it, is Tracy Walker's a big loss.
Huge.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Bobby. Receivers got to step up. There's enough receiving talent there, and that I think we can make up for the absence of St. Brown as long as the defense can play and hold the Seahawks offense to what we saw them do last week. We know we can score points. And on the Okudah point, he left the game at one point with an injury. And that's when the defense started giving up some points. And finally he came back in and we were able to lock things down for the most part until the end of that game there.
All right. Well, let's send it around for some parting shots. I guess I'll lead off. I want to talk about the only winless team in the NFL, which is the Josh McDaniels Las Vegas Raiders. It was disappointing the first stint when he went out to Denver and it didn't work out so well, and he goes back to New England and kind of think that he matures, learns from his mistakes, and now he's 0-3 out in Vegas. He's had some tough games. The Hunter Renfrow debacle against the Cardinals last week. I don't know if I'd chalk that up to McDaniels on the loss, but the bottom line is that they're the only winless team in the NFL. You make the Devontae Adams trade and give up the farm to get him, and he's got 3 touchdowns this year. He's back reunited with Derek Carr, but he's still not the leading receiver production wise. He doesn't have the most yards on the Raiders. You look at Josh Jacobs; he hasn't scored a touchdown yet at the running back position, and you see how many points the defense is giving up. It's concerning, and it's just not what I would have expected from this Raiders team. And you think about the special teams coach for the Green Bay Packers, and you wonder if maybe it would have all just been better if he had stuck as the head coach instead of making that McDaniels hire. So I'm not saying that 3 weeks into the season that's the end of the discussion, but it's definitely something to think about, and you hope that he turns that ship around because I would like him to succeed.
I'll piggyback on that point and kind of take it a different direction. It's not been a great last 3 years for Bill Belichick and his kind of legacy as one of the greatest coaches ever. And certainly he's won a lot. He's accomplished a lot as a coach, but you kind of think part of your job as a head ball coach is to develop other coaches and prepare them to be successful head coaches. Name a Belichick position coach that's gone on to succeed in the NFL.
Bill
I'll wait.
O'Brien. That's
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
That's
that's
it.
that's the only one, right? And he's now fired and coaching college ball for Alabama, right?
He's going to be the next Nebraska coach.
Romeo,
probably.
you know, we all know what happened with Matt Patricia. We've seen the Josh McDaniels experiment a couple times. Romeo Crennel never had success. That real fat guy?
Charlie Weiss.
Charlie Weiss, you know, never had success. There's others, I'm sure, but you know, contrast that with the clearly different leadership style and approach to things that you see with guys like McVay and the amazing success that his folks have had. Kind of makes you wonder, you know, when you look holistically at what a coach should be doing besides just winning games on the field, but developing the other coaches. Kind of tarnishes that view of him, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback that, and then I'll get into what I really wanted to talk about. But I think, you know, I really get tired of listening to talk radio where they immediately go to Tom Brady made Bill Belichick, or did Bill Belichick make Tom Brady? And, you know, they just are so quick to try to dismiss his success as a head coach. Now, whether he developed other coaches is another thing, but it's just really sickening to listen to him, because in the history of the NFL, there has not been a successful, historic coach that didn't have a historic quarterback. You name me one. Lombardi had Starr. Shula had Greasy. Now, Shula did it with other quarterbacks over time, but he didn't win another Super Bowl with them. Tom Landry had Roger Staubach. Hank Stram had Lynn Dawson. I mean, you know, Bill Walsh had Joe Montana and Steve Young. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, Andy Reid's success, he's had great quarterbacks, Donovan McNabb and Patrick Mahomes, and it can just go on and on. You know, the Packers' success of the years with Favre and then the years with Aaron Rodgers. So that gets really frustrating to me that they want to do that. It's like they have to make a niche for themselves, you know, to try to say he's the GOAT. You know, Belichick he was fired in Cleveland. And it all correlates, but it correlates to every coach, you know, that does not have that quarterback. They just don't have sustained success. And that then leads me to my last thing. I can't listen to talk radio much anymore, because there used to be a day when you turned on ESPN and I listened to Chris Berman and Tom Jackson give me a replay of yesterday's games. Pass to Drew Pearson, pass to, you know, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith with a run, Walter Payton with a run. But now it's every show has to have these guys that question every single thing that the coach does, and the whole show is based on that. You know, it's just, I can't listen to it. I can kind of listen to Colin Cowherd. Yeah, I don't always agree with his takes, but he doesn't spend the whole show questioning the play calling of the coaches, and he doesn't have three guys on the show, Dan Orlovsky, you know, who is, you know, an expert on the what's going on. You know, it's really bothersome to me, and I know I get a lot of that old school. You guys laughing right now? I know you are, because I'm saying it, but
I'm just laughing because Dan Orlovsky is considered an expert.
Right, that's what I was laughing at. What are you going to do? Run out the back of an end zone and say, "What was the coach thinking here?"
Hey, listen, Danny's good, but his whole career's been made by Mike Greenberg. You know, just like a lot of guys' careers were made, but even Mike and Mike, I used to think they brought people on, but they talked about the game, you know, in the right way. And that's kind of gone away from that. You know, I love Greeny, and his show now is the same way. He's got 5 different people that come on and talk, and they're really the only ones that talk about the game in a way that is informative about the game are the women that they have that are covering the NFL, because they don't spend their whole time criticizing, you know, on 3rd and 6, did they play cover 2, you know, when they should have been, you know, playing, you know, man-to-man and blitzing and playing man-high, you know, cover 1 kind of stuff. They just talk about the game and what they're seeing. So it's hard to listen to and hard to watch, because they all just try to outsmart the other show on their intelligence, and I get sick of it. I want a show that just gives me the highlights of the game. Like, I don't want the Sports Center show that has, you know, the comedian Sports Center host trying to be funny. You know, it gets old.
Ladies and gentlemen, have you laughed once today? I don't think so, because you're listening to Tommy on Tap, where we only talk about the facts of the game. There's no laughing. There's nothing. It's just the game. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to our old man Tom standing on his porch with his cane. We hope that you'll be back next weekend so he can tell you to get off his lawn. You're listening to Tommy on Tap. Have a good night.